Today in the EU leaders meet at a summit of rural hunger. As the EU summit on the 21st and 22nd of March looms, farmers take center stage at the table of the discussions. Will EU leaders grant their approval to their requests or not? And what hangs in the balance for the agri-food sector this week? Hello and welcome. I am Evi Chiori, and this is Today in the EU. We invited Angelo Di Mambro, Euractiv's Agrifood editor, in our studio to break this down. Angelo, why are we here today, and what is that we will be talking about?
We are going to talk about farmers, agriculture, and the state of the play at European level, because agriculture is entangled in many different aspects of the European policy.
And you know what got my attention and why I really wanted to bring you in the studio is the fact that you wrote about the summit of rural hunger to describe the EU leaders meeting coming up on Thursday. Why so? What can we expect from that?
Yes, it was a sentence from a person close to the preparation of the summit.
I thought you were about to say a sentence from your heart, but
no. Well, we report always facts. It's not from my heart.
Okay. So what's happening?
We have seen for months now farmers protesting, and we have seen how agriculture has become something related to foreign policy. And I think about Ukraine, for instance, what happened at the border of Ukraine between Poland and Ukraine in the past months, with farmers blocking also humanitarian aids, also weapons. So it was something that went beyond the protest of the farmers. Why
did the farmers start blocking the borders with Ukraine?
The solidarity lanes and the liberalization of the imports from Ukraine caused the steer. This has been lasting for 1 year already. What's happening is that Ukraine is an agricultural powerhouse, no? Mm-hmm. So in commodities especially. When the Black Sea corridor, so the most comfortable way to export for Ukrainians, was blocked because of the Russian invasion, the EU tried to find a solution to help Ukraine to export. And the solution was opening these solidarity lanes and to favor the Ukrainian commodities to go through the EU and find their way in the global markets, and a liberalization of imports. No quotas, no duties. But what happened that most of that product stayed in the frontline countries, putting pressure on prices, especially, and now the situation with the cereals. And given that the global price of cereals is very low now,
this has been boiling for a while.
So the demand of fair management of this situation has been rising for months.
Our farmers operate on a daily basis in a very competitive global market. You are often the most vulnerable part in the value chain. And of course, you deserve a fair remuneration. Our aim is to support your livelihoods and to guarantee European food security. Each of you have a role to play, each of you from, of course, your own perspective,
said Commission President Ursula von der Leyen while addressing the farmers.
And now it will arrive. It will land on the table of the leaders. In the conclusion, the draft conclusion that Euractiv could see, have a mention of agriculture, a mention of the Ukrainian problem. The European Council conclusions are the highest level political document in the EU, so it's quite important.
You're talking about the draft conclusions of the meeting that you've had a pick on. Can you tell us more about that?
It's political orientation, so no practical solution, but there is the invitation to the Commission and to the Agricultural Council to work to find solutions to that situation, and in general to ensure a fair income to the farmers, and there is an acknowledgement of the reasons of the protest, in a sense.
Now, the document with the conclusions keeps being updated quite frequently, I would say, but don't let that stop you from sharing with us what you've seen so far.
So far, in the document, we see that the leaders endorse something that is underway. Last Friday, European Commission presented the package on simplification of the CAP and on initiatives to improve the bargaining power of farmers into the food chain. And this is something that the leaders will endorse.
Mm-hmm. And on the Ukraine front?
This Ukraine-related situation has shifted in the last days because the Commission on Friday, Ursula von der Leyen said that the Commission will propose shortly measures to tackle the Russian food imports. And this is seen from the Ukrainians, from Poland, from all the frontlines member states. Latvia has already in place a ban on Russian food. This is seen as also a political solution to the fact that those frontline member states were criticizing Ukraine, and Ukraine was, in the last months, the relationship between Poland and Ukraine has been tense. The import of Russian cereals, for instance, are increased. In this situation, is something that is annoying, let's say, it's putting pressure on prices, and all these players, I mean, Ukraine and Poland and Latvia and others are saying that if we block the import of Russian food, that can help also because it's eliminating a factor of pressure on prices. There's also to be said that in 2 years, things have changed a lot on that, because for 2 years we have heard that, okay, we cannot sanction food from Russia because of global food security, because Russia is the biggest exporter of cereals. But now this is changing. I'm sure that the leaders will talk about that as well.
And you've been writing a lot about this. I mean, the connection between geopolitics and agriculture that is coming back to life. Can you tell us a bit more about how do you mean this and why is this the case?
Because nowadays agriculture is related to many, let's say, other policy areas that usually are not related to that. So when you talk about enlargement and a greater integration of Ukraine, you have to talk about agriculture, because Ukraine is a big agricultural producer with the structure of agriculture is quite different from the EU one. When you talk about the cohesion between in the EU front for Ukraine, you have to talk about agriculture, because this cohesion was put in discussion by farmers' protests at the border. So, and this is about foreign policy. In the next few days, the European Court of Justice will rule on the validity of a EU-Morocco agreement. It's a trade agreement on fisheries and another one on agricultural products. And suddenly this becomes something more than agriculture, because EU is currently having this strategy on migration of making deals with the North African countries. So there was Tunisia, there was Egypt. Everybody says that Morocco will be next one. If the European Court of Justice says that trade agreement is not valid, that's a problem not only for agriculture, not only for fisheries and agriculture. It's a migration problem. So you see, we find agriculture in many different policy areas.
And how do you see the talks in the meeting panning out in relation, of course, to agriculture?
The big topic on the table is the support of Ukraine. So how to support Ukraine. Agriculture will be part of the discussion. It depends on many things if it will become a contentious issue. It could, because, for instance, on food imported from Russia, the Baltic states and Poland are in favor, but in the current situation, there are also member states that are importing because the Russian cereals are cheap for animal feed. Yeah. So there are some countries, I refer to Spain, Italy, or Greece also, they are importing because it's cheap. And what happens if the Polish and the Baltic don't agree with the southern member states? They can agree. Huh? I'm not saying that they will not agree, but it's a potential contentious issue.
And could we say that the Commission, with Commissioner Janusz Wojciechowski and the President Ursula von der Leyen, has changed its tone toward the farmers, or? Let's
say that since the spring 2023, with the victory of the rural party, let's say, BBB, in the Dutch local elections, the attitude towards agriculture has started to change, the attitude of European institutions.
The European Green Deal was born out of this necessity to protect our planet. But it was also designed as an opportunity to preserve our future prosperity. Europe's industry is showing every single day that it is ready to power this transition. proving that modernization and decarbonization can go hand in hand.
The Green Deal has been one of the core policies of this Commission's mandate, led by Ursula von der Leyen.
We were coming from 5 years in which the green agenda was really overwhelming everything. I remember that the debate on the common agricultural policy in the European Parliament was just about how much green was the CAP, and not on other elements that now are unveiling themselves as problematic, such as this simplification stuff.
What's the simplification stuff?
The European Commission proposed to change some requirements to make the life simpler for farmers that must apply them, but also for member states' administration. One thing that was ignored because the green agenda was overwhelming and was neglecting all the rest. It is the fact that this reform, started in 2023, is giving to member states unprecedented powers in terms of implementation of the policy. So in terms of applying those administrative rules that now have been contested. And now member states are asking to change them. So this passage, it seems bureaucracy, but bureaucracy then, when it comes to implementation, it's of paramount importance. If I transfer to member states some powers to implement the policy, it can happen, as it happened, that member states can add a layer of administration, so a layer of complication.
And what should we keep an eye on regarding agriculture in this summit?
We might expect a debate with no issues, because the document contains and includes things that are underway, that are already moving. I think that the most meaningful part will be the connection between that part of the document and the bigger part on Ukraine. That's and there we could expect something. Also maybe a mentioning of the Russian food ban, for instance. This could be the new element compared to the draft that we have seen in the last days.
We shall see what comes out from the talks, but also what reactions we will have on this. Angelo, thank you very much. I am Evi Chiori, and this was Today in the EU. Visit Euractiv to stay on top of the latest news, sign up for our podcast newsletter, and if you haven't subscribed yet to our podcast, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is that you get your podcasts. This episode was produced by myself, Miriam Sáenz de Tejada, and Nicoleta Yonta. Thank you for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow. As part of our commitment to accuracy, inclusion, and transparency, Euractiv is part of the Trust Project.